Good morning, good morning, good morning, good morning. Mm-mm-mm. I figured I'd turn on the live stream because I'm just cranking away on yesterday's shot, so not a whole lot to talk about this morning. It's just, I figured if I'm going to go ahead and finish up the shot, why not turn on the live stream? So, yeah, we'll see if anybody shows up this morning. Obviously, I didn't give any warning, and that's okay. We're just creating a living record of the arduous process of creating an animated cartoon from scratch, because that's what we do. Alright, so yesterday we okay, you seem to be acting a little bit silly there. Let's hit the tab key and see if that does the trick. Okay, it does. I don't know if that is a tablet driver thing or if that's a Krita thing. I've only seen it happen with Krita, but it's like it gets a little hung up on grabbing the middle mouse button. Usually when you do what I just did, where you pan the screen around with the middle mouse, and then all of a sudden it kind of won't let go. So let's see here. Got a few things I want to figure out today in regard to the work here on the show. One aspect I was thinking about is I'd like to set up some kind of... Wait a minute. Had to check and make sure my mic was on. Lord knows I have been known to crank along for quite a while without realizing there was some technical debacle in play, which I was blissfully unaware of. Actually, let me double check this. I think, yeah, this is going to be more of a regular eye, and then we're going to be animating the opening of it. So I probably should, I guess just to be nice, I'll jump over to, you guys are probably going to hear an echo here. Let me turn off the desktop audio. Okay, so I'm going to go here, grab this, cut that, and then jump over to Discord. And I'll just post something over there so that all you good folks that give a rip about what's going on over here. Okay, so streaming now, just continuing yesterday's shot. Okay, so if people want to join or say hello, obviously there is no cooler place on the internet than the Blended Planet YouTube channel. That's for sure. Morning, Amar. So yeah, I want to look at the idea of how to set up my audio rig so that I really do want to experiment. I noticed yesterday that I went ahead and recorded the voice directly into here. Now in Vegas you can create essentially what amounts to group folders with subfolders within them. So there's really no reason why I couldn't go in direct with sound effects and voices and music straight into Vegas instead of going to Reaper, as long as I've got Reaper going with my virtual instruments piping in, because I don't even actually mind doing the music live. Like, you know, a lot of composers wouldn't dream of not having, you know, MIDI data that they can massage, which I usually do have, but that's just because it's the simplest way to do it. I could see having like a laptop set up with a virtual instrument or something. Hey, Full Chain, what's going on, man? Good to see you. How are things over there in, where is it you're from again? I always get it mixed up. I'm thinking Singapore or Philippines, one or the other. It must be Philippines. But yeah, good to see you. You haven't been too active on YouTube either, have you? Yeah, I know you told me that before. Not Singapore. Don't be stupid, Dave. So yeah, but yeah, it's nice to see you. How are you? Have you been doing any? Well, I appreciate that. I just I've been working on writing the. Well, I had to plot out the next 10 episodes, and then I'm tightening episode 3 up into a proper script while I'm. It just the timing was right to start animating again. So basically, I've only been gone because there really hasn't been anything much to show or do. At least not for people. Man, my nose. Not for people who are into animation. Not that you necessarily learned much from me anyway. You've kind of gotten back. Okay, that's good. That's good. I'm sure whatever you've done is probably better than anything I'm doing. But yeah, I mean you're one of the good ones, man. I definitely respect your ability. So, okay. So now I believe probably what we should do is actually let's clean up the color. So Alt M, boom. So that just got rid of all the red. And if you really want to be picky, you want to clamp the alpha as well. You can see that histogram right there. You can see that if you push this over just like that, then you know you've really gotten rid of all the color that's almost transparent. If you don't do that, and you try to color into the same layer, a lot of times you'll get the fills don't work at all, and it's because there's actually latent pixel data there, but normally that what I just did gets rid of it. Okay, so the thing we should do here is basically move his face, and I'm actually going to go Alt and leave his nose out of it. There's no reason to put his nose in the selection. So I'm basically hitting Alt so that I can remove things from the selection. So now what I'm going to do is go Control X, Control V, so that I can just, because the only thing that animates over the next 2 frames is his eyes and mouth. So why are we going to completely redo this other layer just for that, right? Over and over again. So N key, okay, full chain, storyboarding the thing right now. Okay, yeah, it'll be interesting to see what you're doing. Tahoma looks so nice to do storyboards on. Yes. Huh. What do you, I mean, if I was going to do a storyboard, honestly, if I was going to build something up from storyboard, I want the best performance, and ideally like the way I'm doing it, I animate and then I add the voices afterwards, whereas usually in the animation world, the voices are done first and then you animate to that. What I'm getting around to is I would use Blender. If I really wanted a killer storyboard app, I would use Blender. Or, to a degree, I'd use Krita. Because with Krita, you draw in one frame, you just go to the next frame, and then you got your storyboard, and you can always rearrange. I don't even know what the attraction of a storyboard app is, other than the fact that you can move the cards around and reorder them, but you can do that with keyframes. So what's the benefit of a dedicated well, yeah, and I didn't know there was a storyboarding add-on, but it doesn't surprise me. I mean, there's an add-on for everything. In Blender, heck, if you got any programming ability, you could code your own. But all you're doing, I tell you, I'll give a quick demonstration here because this is, and I'll use, gosh, I'm not going to use Blender 3, so I'll just use 279 because that's what I most like. But the thing that Blender would give me on a storyboard is that if let's see, let's draw one of these full chain animation type, what do you call it, what do you call that thing with all the dinosaurs? And I can't remember what it's called, but we'll make up a crazy creature here. Okay. And we'll have his eyes facing in different directions, like a Matt Groening thing with a big smile. Okay, so this is like some kind of crazy dragon creature. So okay, and so let's say I'm not going to animate anything. I'm just going to create another frame. So this guy's cackling like crazy, and then over here there's another creature that's got a little bigger beak that's looking at him going, what the heck is, what drugs have you been taking today, kind of thing. All right. So now the thing is, if I want to change the ordering, all I got to do is move the keyframes around. If I want to expand it out into actual timing, say, let's see here. I want to say he's got this little reaction and his head tilts back a little bit, just say. You can work all that out, and then you can actually organically build it out into a full-blown animation, because then you could do all your ink and paint as well. So I mean, to me, if you want all the flexibility, performance, and capability, Blender's, I would say, it's so quick and easy. Which of course begs the question, well, Dave, why aren't you using Blender for this? The main thing that keeps me in Krita has to do with paint, gradients, very quickly being able to chop a piece out of a layer and into another layer, and just the way you can sort of bake stuff down and then rebuild it back up. There's some things about the Krita workflow that I like for that. And then Krita integrates well with Tahoma 2D. If it wasn't for the integration with Tahoma 2D, well, I should say the integration is part of what makes me like Tahoma 2D. If I wasn't using Krita, with Tahoma, I would definitely be probably back to Blender. So anyway, it needs the ease of grabbing a bunch of levels that will retain their exposures in relation to each other and drag their lengths in a timeline around. When you say what, can you use that? What are you talking about? The at the risk of pissing off Amar, I'm going to say, don't listen to Amar about the OCA format. Everything that I've seen about getting the OCA format from one program to another sounds awesome and amazing. Everybody just rants about how great it is, and then you actually try to use it. It doesn't fucking work at all. It's like Buggy is a is a picnic. Yes. Okay, yeah, so you shift select. Certainly, okay, so in Blender, yeah, that's easy. That's easy in Blender. Okay, let's try this again since we're here and we're live. We might as well do something useful. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, when I'm working intuitively, I might initially start out with the idea that I've got two characters on the screen. Okay, this is what happens actually all the time. So we'll call these characters Biff and Harvey. So then what happens is he's going to wind up being a static image, and he's going to change, and he's also going to wind up having multiple layers that are being animated separately. Okay, so and I'm assuming this is what you're talking about, full chain. Okay, so I realize this guy really needs to be in his own layer. So I hit the M key and I'm moving it to a new layer. Right now it's in the sketch layer, and I'll just make a new layer and call it Harvey. Oops, that's not what I meant to do. Let me undo a couple times. Okay, and then we're going to change the name of this. Okay, so, and this is just basically the way it goes. So let's go back here, and I'm not sure I didn't realize I was on frame 30. So what I just did was stupid. That's not what you want to do. I should have been on frame 1. And it looks to me, oh, I see what I did. So what I did was I moved it over here on this frame, but on this frame he's still in this layer. So if that doesn't make any sense, I wouldn't be surprised. I'm going to draw an X over this, and I'm guessing if we turn this off, well, okay, I guess I did move it. So why is that keyframe there? I'm going to move that back to frame 1. Okay, because for demonstration purposes, I'm not doing a very good job. L for select linked, delete. We now have the 2 layers. Who did I call this guy? Biff? Okay, so we've got Biff and Harv in separate layers. And to keep things clean, I'm going to get rid of every other layer. So it's just not like stupid. Okay, now this. All right, so now the next thing that happens is, well, okay, so should I just quit then? Should I just forget it? The main thing I wanted to show, I'll show the one thing I wanted to show and then we'll forget it. If you want to go down this road, you can. But let's say we're going to animate his eyes. Okay, so I just move them to a new layer and we call that eyes. All right, so then I'm going to keep this as stupidly simple as possible, and I'm just going to rotate the eyes around. Let's turn off the... see, because I don't buy your argument about fiddliness. I've heard that sort of thing before. In all my years of experience, this is what I find. Every single case, no exceptions, where the argument is that this solution over here is simpler, cleaner, but just as capable, it always turns out that it's just as fiddly. It turns out you go through the same amount of fiddling and mistakes and everything, no matter what program you use. That's my opinion, and I've never seen it fail. So you sort of learn not to get too yanked about the occasional glitch. All right, so I'm going to rotate these eyes around, and let me double check. Okay, yeah. So there, so we've got this change. Okay, so now the question would become, first of all, what if we need to do an animation thing with this and like make modifications in the timing? So as far as the using, like, I can grab these keyframes all as groups. Okay, so I can move the keyframes around as a group. I can hit the scale key and change the timing. So speed it up, slow it down, whatever, change the distance. And obviously you can do that independently. The thing I found though, with Blender, with the grease pen, this is actually another thing that dissuades me from using Blender for animation in general, is that if you go beyond a traditional approach to layering, you know, in the old days, you had a layer for each character, right? And then you'd have a layer for the background. You might have a total of a half dozen layers, especially if you're going to do a camera move. But the layering was based on the content, not on the structure of the characters. In other words, you weren't using layers to create some sort of puppet thing. It's not that you couldn't, but in the day, that was how you did it. And that's how I tend to do it in Krita. When things turn towards, you know, rigging and structure and puppet animation, because you're basically trying to save time, what happens is the layering in the keyframes begins to become, it gets cumbersome. It winds up being like, you just wind up spending more time navigating the data than doing the creative work. That's actually another reason why I've been kind of staying in Krita, is because it's a flatter approach. It's actually the reason why I do the pencil test in red and then just put the ink in black on the same layer. It's just like keeping things as flat as possible works for me. It's probably not what most people would prefer, but there it is. So we'll call this face. But anyway, that probably wasn't very helpful. But the bottom line is, I did it on, I think, the Fan Futurama thing. I think I did one round of storyboards and animatics. Storyboard flows into animatic, flows into rough pencil animation. I've done it in Tahoma. I've done it in Blender. They both work. It's about the same to me. So anyway, makes sense what happened there, but I mean with this fiddle, there's no way to edit color and sculpt animation in either of the other programs except Blender. Right, Amar's correct about that. If you want to sort of procedurally build up an animation, it's not that you won't have redundant work to do though. Like, for example, if you do some sculpting in Blender with your pencil test animation just because you want to see how things move, you're going to have to reproduce all that work when you go to ink and paint and color, anyway. But the sculpting tools are state of the art, obviously. Allows you to work with 3D audio and the script in one program. I agree. It's true. If you really want the all-in-one program, Blender's the one. Second would probably be OpenTunes or Tahoma, and yet here I am getting work done in Krita. So, what did Full Chain say? You wanted to? Yes, so people talk about Storyboard Pro sometimes. I'm looking Full Chain at what it was you wanted to do to arrange the other scenes when you've moved one scene around. Let me think about that. Are you talking about ripple editing? Is that really what you're talking about, is ripple editing? In other words, okay, because I've done my storyboards in Vegas, actually. In fact, the way I did Salt and Light initially was the whole thing was a storyboard laid out in Vegas, and then I would replace the individual storyboard frames with, Okay, because ripple editing is huge. You're right. If you're going to rearrange things, if you're dealing with, sort of virtual index cards that you can just move around, right? And then that rearranges your scenes. Definitely that's useful. That probably is how the storyboard add-on for Blender works, I would bet. It probably treats, because you can do that with the nonlinear editor in Blender too. I mean, the nonlinear editor essentially takes a cluster of keyframes and treats them as a single unit, right? Which is really what you're doing. So the ripple edit thing is a fair argument. But it seems to me, I'm just visualizing it in my mind. If I'm dealing with Tahoma, I've got multiple layers, and there's a few things I can do. One is I can take a cluster of layers that work together as a unit, like a character, just turn them into a subscene. Now you're dealing with them as a single unit. The ripple editing thing, I mean, Tahoma does it. If you grab a group of frames and just move them into another column, you can literally grab everything and just drag it up. Now the dragging isn't quite as elegant as having it snap up and fill in the space, but making timing changes is easy in Blender, a little harder in Tahoma. It'll do timing changes, but then it's basically impossible in Krita. output them as individual frames and edit their timing and shot cut where it's easy to drag their durations around. Right, which is essentially what I did with Vegas. That's why I did the storyboard in Vegas. It made it stupidly easy to time things out. If you're using the timeline in Blender, you can set markers, and that will allow you to jump and move your frames around based on the length of your shot. Okay, but that's interesting. Yes, there's more. There's lots of ways to skin that cat in Blender and in Tahoma, actually. Blender's better, Tahoma's second, and obviously, again, Krita's the worst. If I was doing a storyboard in Krita, what I would do is I would do a drawing on each frame, like this. Just every frame is a new drawing. Just rough in the story, and then I would export all the frames, bring them into Vegas, and then I can time them and move them around. But yeah, let us know how the Blender storyboard add-on works for you. I'll be interested. I mean, that would be a thing to check out. Even if you're not into storyboarding, as a tool to, treat collections of drawings and frames and in keys and layers as a single unit that can be rearranged and maintain their relationship to each other, that's an interesting value proposition for sure. Okay, so I got to keep working here, guys. As you guys know, I blab way too much, and the result is I don't get work done. Control Insert. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to Control Shift X, get rid of that keyframe. And now here, I am going to actually, I think Control F. That's not quite what I wanted, sorry. Okay, I want Control M, and I wanted to dial down the alpha. Let's just, excuse me. It is allergy season, so I have an excuse. All right, Control F here, and now we can go here and make our adjustments. This can pretty much be a liquefied job. So there's that. So as usual, I'm not too wonked out about not using the digital tools. If they work for the case at hand, then why not use them, right? Okay, so here we're actually going to grab this and make it, actually I'm going to just use the arrow, I think. Yep. Just use the arrow and make a teensy weensy change, A down, and then go here, and then I probably can do it again. A down. Yeah, that was convenient. I don't know if I've ever done that before. Just use the arrow keys. So, okay. So now, actually, our ink job might be done. It might be done. Then we got to get into the background. So let's see what we have here. Okay. Yes. Actually, this is wrong. These two keyframes actually need to be just deleted in the Vespar layer. Boom. They're gone. Okay, there we go. So now we've actually got our ink done. I can't believe it. I've definitely spent more time talking than Cheese Yappo. Hey, Cheese Yappo. Hello, everyone. Hello. Yeah, I probably shouldn't have gotten off on all that stuff about storyboarding in Blender as far as trying to demonstrate it, because it's like, I mean, I'm just kind of getting back into animation, and whenever I try to demonstrate this stuff, either things go wrong or I just don't do a very good job of demonstrating it because I really wasn't prepared. So, anyway. But there is no question that Blender is the quintessential Swiss Army knife application when it comes to animation. Control G. But that doesn't mean it's exactly the right idea for everything. So, all right, so we've got the let's just go, I think in Vespar's case, let's just do color. Let's just call it color, and let's just get him colored. Okay, this is where I want to take a little bit of a chill pill. Cause he's transparent. Okay, let me think about this. This is actually where the one new feature in Krita, which I did not try, okay, but the one new feature in Krita that would be really useful right now is the fill tool lets you draw a lasso around a closed shape and it'll just fill in the shape. Okay? Just so as you know. So let me just think about this for a second. Because it's on a separate layer, I would say the thing to do, let's just use a neutral gray. And I'm just going to do my best here. I'm just going to do it the hard way. Okay, you can see here, by the way, all of those anomalies I was talking about. The important thing here is that we get the edges clean. So this is where the lasso fill would be good. But if you have this, you know, corruption in the alpha buffers, it isn't going to do you any good anyway, right? So what would Ed Tadeo do is the question, and what he would do is he would just go around and he would manually color in the edges. That's exactly what he would do. I've seen him do it zoodles of times. So I'm just going to do this the hard way because, as usual with all things animation, the best laid plans fail you because you make one little mistake. In this case, it was failing to completely clean out the alpha in his body. I did it in his, gosh, where did I do it? I did it somewhere. I remember doing it. I don't remember what I was doing. And it could be that it just didn't work too. So this is a horrid deficiency in Krita that's been in Krita for as long as I can remember. Krita, and I guess it's not, technically it's not a deficiency actually. If you crank down the alpha such that the pixels can't be seen, that doesn't actually mean that they're not there. They're just transparent and you can't see them, but they're still there. They might have a transparency of, 2%. You can't see them, but for some reason you might want them to still be there. So this corruption that you see really is not a flaw in Krita, actually. Now what is a little bit concerning is that I can actually see, I'm seeing the red bleed through. That's kind of crazy. Okay, let me think about this for a minute. That's okay. Actually, I'm even dumber than I thought I was, because now that I think about it, the color that's in there has nothing to do with it. In other words, watch this. Yep, see, look at that. This is actually all I needed to do. So we'll solve the problem right now. I'm pretty sure we'll solve it. What I'm going to do right now is I'm going to hit Control F, and I'm going to do the same process on all of these frames. I think I did it on this one. So just to be safe, we'll do it again. Okay, that should get rid of the filling corruption. So that was just a stupid attack on my part. Like I said, guys, I'm getting back in the groove. It's been a while. I've been dealing with writing, and of course before that I was dealing with getting all of episode 2 scored. And that I'm not loving. Okay, so now what we should discover, and I'm going to put in a keyframe. Okay, I'm going to stop and look at any comments. All good, thank you, you're very kind. The developer's been working on making Krita more like CSP, I'm sure, with the announcement recently. He'll use this as an opportunity to be adding in more features. I see it as a stepchild of CSP anyway. Yeah, maybe. I mean, I mean, obviously they borrow from each other, but yeah, who knows? Okay, so here we're gonna test our theory. I'm just gonna go ahead and redo the fill operations because I want to see if I did what I thought I did. So I'm gonna hit the F key, and yeah, see, look at that. That's way cleaner. Okay. So sometimes you're still going to have to do a little bit by hand. But if this was Krita 5.2, it's the only thing I can see about 5.2 that I think is probably, assuming it's not buggy, which I have no idea. But with 5.2, you could go like this, like that, put a lasso, and it would fill the character in. And that is really good for, it's as I keep mentioning Ed, it's how he does color. And I've seen a lot of other people do it this way too. The idea is to fill in your characters with a neutral gray, and there's a few reasons why you might want to do that. The reason I'm doing it is so that I can then paint the background. So the background's going to be in there, and then when I do the color on his costume, I'll be able to come up with a color scheme that's a little more, let's call it professional. Where the colors, it's just going to be a little better thought out on the color. So that's actually the reason why I'm doing it this way. I don't usually do it this way, but insert. But I will say this feature is the one reason I would look at Krita 5.2 would be this particular feature. The lasso fill. So they did quite a bit with the fill tool, and again, I haven't really messed with it to know how good it is broadly. All I know is I loaded the program and immediately all of my settings were broken, and I said, that's it, I'm done, I quit. I'm not going to sit and dink around with any program that literally destroys all my settings, without a thought. I hate that. It's the one thing I despise about Krita and Krita's development pathway. They've always been really, they just make assumptions about your working situation that are quite silly. So in other words, if you're going to change my settings, just ask me first. At least give me the chance to refuse. That's what I'm saying. You've been looking into creating brushes. Once I get that and play with it more. Yeah, well, dude, it's going to take you half a day to bone up on that. I mean, creating brushes in Krita is really not that big of a deal. Use it all the time in CSP. It's called flatting. So that technique he uses comes from his comic book background. That's why he does that. I do it for animation, but more for... You see, I always got the impression that, okay, we call it flatting. I've never heard that term, so I'll assume that's the definitive term. For me, the whole purpose is just to give you clarity about what you've got, right? When you do a preview, it looks cool. But in this case, the biggest deal is obviously the character is transparent because it's just lines. So if you then paint if you put the background in and your idea is that you want to make color judgments based on the background, then two things go wrong. One is you can't see your character because he's transparent and you've got the background in there. And number two, all of your fill operations aren't going to work because the noise of the background is actually going to cause the filling not to work. So having the character in some sort of solid form is probably not the worst idea ever. Okay, let's start having some fun here, though. I'm not even gonna give that a name. I'm gonna put it in a group and call it BKGD, as I often do. And now let's just kind of deal with things one at a time. First of all, if we're gonna put a black base on our background, then we probably want to make a color adjustment on this guy. Okay, so let's just do that right now. Let's add I've never done a colorized mask. Let's do a filter mask. And what we're going to do is just give him a little bit of illumination and probably push the blue because it is supposed to be night kind of thing. So that didn't work. Reset that. Yeah, something like that. Okay, just a little bit of a blue cast. Okay, so now that's number one. Number two, I'm going to go ahead and flatten that. Flatten that layer. So I'm baking that color change in. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is also I want to go ahead and immediately implement a gradient. So this is going to be soldier. This is the kind of thing, this is again one of the reasons why I use Krita, okay? Because what I'm about to do right now is the kind of thing I can do really quick and easy in Krita, and it's just, I'm able to intuitively just create what I'm wanting to see very quickly without a lot of fiddling and intermediate steps. So, so let's just go like that, okay? And then I'm gonna alpha lock it, and then I'm gonna turn it way, 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 way down, okay? Just so we're creating a little bit of a color gradient across this guy, okay? And whoops, that was not supposed to happen. Okay, so that's, yeah, that's not bad. We'll just kind of ease that in. Actually, it's what happens if we crank it way up but put it in overlay mode. Yeah, that's not too bad. It's a little bit saturated, but we'll go with that. That'll work. Okay, so now this is in a group, and we can isolate the, hey, Yvette, how you doing? Okay. Okay, so next step is obviously to deal with the background. I did this stuff on the silhouette so that we could go ahead and put in a black base for our background. And so we'll just hit the fill tool. There we go. Okay, so now that's basically our environment that we're working in. Okay. And it is nighttime, so let's just think about this. I just want to kind of block in the concept first. All right, so actually I want this one. So I'm going to say, all right, let's assume the moon is up there. We'll just, for argument's sake, we're going to assume there is a horizon here somewhere. We're probably not going to see it much because they actually are in the thick of the woods, but I'm just kind of being cognizant of that. One reason being, if you're actually dealing with a sort of a background sky situation, you're going to be a little more muted towards the bottom. Let me go ahead and go like this. I'll put the moon back in there again. Okay, so I'm just spitballing here, guys. This is totally, I'm just kind of feeling what I got here and working it up. Okay, so there's kind of a concept for the sky. Probably, if we're going to go into other layers, we probably should push the blue on this a little bit, give it a little bit more saturation. That feels pretty darn good, actually, to me. Okay, so we'll just put in another layer in front of that. Now what I want to do is start blocking in some shape concepts. Okay, conceptually, I want to work with really broad shapes here. So I'm feeling like I want some kind of something that's cutting across this way. Probably I don't want to interrupt this space too much, but some foliage coming down like this wouldn't be bad, because that actually will help to clarify the shape of his, you know, this edge right here will actually be clearer if there was a little bit more contrast there. So I'm going to say that this is going to be some kind of tree situation, and I'm just going to kind of chisel this out. Okay, now there would be foliage down here that's just brush. Okay, and then I want to put another layer behind it, and this is going to look a little strange, but basically this is what I'm going to do. I'm thinking there's got to be just this noisy forest situation. I mean, it would be there, okay? But then it would be somewhat muted. I'm thinking it would actually be something like that. And again, guys, I'm totally spitballing here. I don't know that this is the right idea. I'm just trying stuff. Okay, so catch a little bit of, and you know, this is really, the kind of thing I've been wanting to do more of is just really trust my gut and just experiment and just try stuff, you know, and not try to get it right the first time. Just okay. Interestingly, this feels good and this feels good-ish, but the two together don't. So it's just too much of the same thing, it feels like. So I'm going to actually hit the insert key. Okay, let me check something here. Yeah, this I just did the wrong layer. Okay, so this is a bit of a problem. I'm going to get rid of all these. Okay, yeah, that's that sketch. Okay, this layer I'm going to go ahead and get rid of for the moment. And I'm feeling like what's going to determine whether this works or not is actually going to be what happens on this layer. So I'm going to go with a very dark green, and we need to get into our, whoops, I want F6. I'm going to have to get my classic foliage brush, which I haven't used in a good long time. I believe it's this one. Yep. Okay. B key. And I really want that to be kind of bigger. Alright, let's get that in there. Alright, and now we'll kind of dress that up just a bit, especially on the outer edges here, because we do have that moon action going on that would suggest a little bit of illumination, catching some light here and there. And now that I see it, it's obviously way too extreme. So that's okay, though. We'll use that as a starting point. That I don't like at all. This should be quite black. And let's see what that color is. Yeah, we really want to work in a pretty muted range here. So, okay, yeah, not really any chat going on, so it's all good. Okay, so I'm rethinking a little bit here. Obviously, I've wound up with, this is just too much of a bulbous, it looks pretty stupid actually. It doesn't really look like foliage. So, yeah, that's horrid. That's horrid. Bad. Completely redo. Well, like I said, this is part of the fun. Just roll with it and just try things. Okay, so I'm going to give this, okay, that's way better. Okay, so now the question was whether a certain amount of highlighting is helpful or harmful, and I thought it was going to be helpful. Turns out it's more harmful. So there's that. B key, boom. Okay. And I'm going to go ahead and make this bigger. This is supposed to be a trunk. It's kind of a bent over tree that's had a bit of a hard life situation going on. For now, let's just erase this stuff. We'll come back to it and see what we want to do with it. Kind of chisel in the tree bit more. And then I would have to say that if you're going to approach it this way, we're going to let this flow into what obviously would be the ground, which this is a little misleading because this ground actually, I mean, there's a horizon line back here somewhere, but this is going to flow into it, like the color of it's going to flow around it. So what I'll do, I think, here is put in a green just so there's a little bit of a different color so that I can block in this. And then what I'm going to do is grab my venerable oil paintbrush and just turn this into a blend. Just turn it into a blend like that, and that actually gets us going. So I make no promises here, by the way, friends. I'm just trying to do what I do and reserve the right to foul it up in a big way. Okay, so let me grab this color. I'm going to leave it on the this brush, but what I'm going to do is switch to kind of a brown. Okay, and now this is where I want to put on my matte painter hat, and I really want to think about just the broad shapes of color and what they make me feel. Does it kind of feel like I'm looking at a tree? Now I'm going to turn on, whoops, didn't mean to hit tab. I'm going to turn on the other layers, but with the characters off, so I can just see what I got here. Okay, this is kind of working. Really limited gamut here on the drawing, but here shortly it should start looking cool. All right, obviously we got the light from the moon, so we're going to address that here in just a minute. And let's just get that into our color zone, and then this is where we're going to really mess it up if I'm not careful. Just want to, actually I'm going to switch to this brush. It's got a little bit more bite to it. Okay. All right, let me zoom in, see what I got. Okay, so you know, this part's fun. It's like you're gonna go in and start smacking in some detail that you're really not gonna see too much, but it's given stuff a little bit of three-dimensional form. And as I said, I always reserve the right to screw it up, because yeah, you're thinking about more than one thing at once, and it's easy to overlook the obvious. Come on. There we go. That feels pretty good. You don't want to get too much detail, but you know, it's more about sort of suggesting the forms based on, you know, what the light's going to hit. So, what's the light going to hit? This is not bad. We're taking a bit of a liberty here with saying, okay, this light's way back here. Would it really catch around here? It probably wouldn't, but it looks cool. So that's where we're going to bend the rules a little bit. And we can also bend the rules by actually go even a little bit brighter here and actually putting a bit of a backlight here. And I don't know if that's going to work. I can always take it back out, but not bad, not bad. All right, so let's turn these guys back on. Yeah, I would say that backlight does not work, only because it just draws too much attention to itself. Visually, it kind of works, but the we don't want it to grab your attention. Obviously, it's the characters we need to be freaking looking at, right? Okay, so that worked. And stop. I'm in the wrong layer. That's a quintessential Krita error, is being in the wrong layer. Actually, it's a quintessential every program you've ever used error. Is finding yourself in the wrong layer. Okay, one thing we need to do here is actually we need to get some mountain action in here. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. Isolate these. This is going to be a bit tricky. It's always this tug of war between atmospheric perspective and you know, a light source. Basically, yes, the moon's up there shedding light, but what you're actually going to see is the contrast between the mountains and the stuff in the background. Now, obviously, that gradient is way too too extreme, so let's just turn it down a little bit. And again, we can sneak a little bit of blue into here. Maybe a slight shift to the green as well. Let's see how that feels. Just a tiny smackerel. Okay, as a background, it's not too bad. What is this? Okay, that's the foreground. And that's the mountains. Okay, there's your moon. So this... okay, the only thing that's bugging me is the... Come on. What is going on? Stop. Am I in the wrong layer? Oh, it's just crazy. Like literally every layer I choose is the wrong one. It's a dyslexia thing. I'm the stuff that is at the top feels like it should be at the bottom and vice versa. It's crazy, but sorry about that. Slide that up. Okay, seriously? You're not gonna let me resize my brush? Okay, something freaky's going on. I'm gonna just save my work. Something's going on. The brush will not switch from the brush will not resize. Okay, switching brushes. This one will resize. Okay, what is it about this brush that doesn't want to resize? I don't remember baking that into the brush. Okay. So, we're going to just ignore that and move on to a different brush. And I'm in the wrong layer again. Sorry about that. Okay, that's starting to feel good. It's amazing how small the gamut can be. And yet, you know, it still works. Your eyes are sensitive to, and sorry for sniffling, you guys. It's from the basically end of August to the first freeze tends to be allergy season around here. So that the fact that the brush is large and a little bit fuzzy doesn't matter because, you know, figure a little bit of focal depth. Now what we might do is just put in a tiny hint. Okay, and resizing the brush is again not working, at least with dragging. So I'm gonna have to kill Krita and restart Krita. I have no idea what's going on. It's something I've literally never seen happen before, is I cannot resize my brushes, which not being able to resize brushes on the fly is kind of a big deal breaker for me. You can obviously use the slider, but just saying. So this is just kind of fun work. Seeing the form emerge just from a bunch of scribbling is pretty cool. N key, not too bad. Turn on all the layers. Gosh, wow. I would say too much contrast, friends. So let's tone it down. Tone it down. That highlight is just a little too aggressive. Tone it down. Alright, you could always do this too. Hit Control M, and then you can obviously kind of flatten things out. Push up the mid-range if you want to. Not too shabby. It's a subtle change, but all right. I'm gonna save my work, and let's get Vespar colored now. Dude, your drawing skills improved a lot. Oh, thanks. That's very nice. That you think that looks good, huh? I appreciate it. The thing that is bad though right now, this layer needs to not be transparent. It actually just needs to be color adjusted. Now, I would say, now that I look at it, let me turn on, I guess I don't want alpha lock. I want the opposite of alpha lock. I need to add another layer here. Okay, I better label these or I'm going to get... Okay, so we're going to call this actually tree line 2 because I'm feeling there needs to be more. Let's just say more. This brush, this is so weird. I don't know what the heck is that about. It is bizarre. The brush will not resize at all. The other brushes will resize with the slider, but that brush won't resize at all. Okay, so what I'm doing is I'm just looking, I'm just trying to feel it. You're looking into you are looking at the outer edge, obviously, of this forest glade or whatever, but we just don't have the amount of brush that should be there, we just don't. So what do? The contrast with this front tree line feels pretty good. If we just come up a little bit, we could give a little bit of form to some of these. You don't want to do too much of that. Number one, it'll draw attention to itself, and number two, that simple high contrast look really is pretty good. Okay, foreground. We really probably need to come back to our foliage brush. 6. I think it was that one. Yeah. And we need to sneak down here a bit. Okay, and then maybe in the absolute. Now, let me think about this. Technically, yeah, there wouldn't be any foreground in front of Vespar because his layers are on top. Duh. So we could put one utility layer in here that's going to be pretty dark. I'm just going to play with this and see if it feels better than not, kind of thing. Guessing not. Okay, and obviously all the background's going to have to be tweaked there. Okay, I don't see as this helped that much. It helped here, but down here not so much. And I'm not really sure what it is I'm wanting to see there. Whoops, wrong brush. I'm going to just kind of roll my own kind of grass type of, I don't know, that doesn't really work. Kind of funny because like I ought to be able to tell, but all right, if I go back to well, gosh, forget it, it's nighttime. His costuming would have a little bit of a blue tint to it. And then, okay, Krita, really? Why are you showing me freaking red when it's blue? Guys, I'm killing Krita and restarting it. That's just like one thing too many. That's annoying. Boom. Rerun. So I'm not using 5.2 because 5.2 on my Linux machine immediately botched all my settings the way Krita used to always do, and the way recent versions of 5 haven't. Why does it say 5.0.1? I thought it was 5.2 was the new version. I'm going to ignore that, friends. I'm going to pretend I didn't see it. Okay. Now it's showing the correct color. Crazy how that works. Okay, so now we just want to work with this small color gamut, like so. And then, and actually this should be a little more blue and a little more dark, as I recall. That and that are actually the same color, and now we need to basically come up with some sort of flesh tone, which, being that it's dark, we could probably go with something like that, and that'll work. Boom, 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 boom. And then this thing is essentially some sort of gold diadem, but in the dark it would look, well, pretty dark. Interesting. So that has actually swollen outside of the, what is the, grow selection, 2 pixels instead of 1. Don't know how that got changed, don't know when that got changed, but that's bad. Okay, why is that bad? Well, all my color around the perimeter is spread out too far. Okay, there's a way to fix that though, so let's fix it right now. We're gonna go filter, blur, Gaussian blur, 5 pixel Gaussian blur, and then we're gonna go Control M on the alpha channel, and what we're gonna do is we're gonna crank the contrast on the alpha channel. You'll see what happens. See that? Okay, so what we're gonna do is we're gonna clamp this down. Clampy, 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 and that basically, and then if you want to harden the edge, thank you, Krita, for being a little bit stupid on your interface there. If you want to clamp the edge a bit, you can. It looks like there's really no reason to in this case. In fact, quite the opposite. What I really want to do is clamp it down like that. Okay, so now the future frames I would expect not to be quite as problematic, so we'll see. Alright, so there's the color, and now we can go ahead and let's get all of these in. Okay, so we've got a mistake already. That's alright. You just want to be aware of it. Here we didn't get the mistake. Here, obviously, somebody out there is shouting at their computer screen that you're going to have to change the background once you do the zoom in, and of course you're correct. Okay, so there's our color. So now let's fix this little issue right here. We're going to, okay, stop everything. Stop, stop, stop. Why are we, sorry guys, I'm backing up. I'm backing way the heck up. Oh, that's why. Okay. I can redo. Control-Shift-Z. Okay, watch this. Redo. Guess what? Surprise, friends. Control-Shift-Z. You know what redo means in Krita? It means that what you expect a redo to do, which is to redo things, doesn't work at all. Hey, Adjan Goswami. Yeah, I'm with Amar. You know exactly what software you're using. You know exactly how you're doing it. It's been 6 months. You've got your game together. I'm assuming that's the case. You know we're all rooting for you, brother. All right, Control F, Control F. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to clean up the the color alpha on all the channels right now while I'm aware of it. So this is not that big of a deal, but it does require a bit of an extra step. I was a little freaking out because I didn't realize that the problem mapped back to when I put in the gray. So it's all good. All right, so now one thing that is worth noting is that this, yes, that tightened that color up, so that's good. I'm liking the way this is looking, actually, in terms of the overall look of it. So there's where our leak was. You can see the leak. So let's go like this, and I think this is the color I wanted to start with. So let's go ahead and smack that in, and hello. Okay, this is a sick and bizarre coincidence that our gray background color is the same color as this perimeter. Just a coincidence. All right, so yes, we will be scaling our background for those who are panicked about that particular issue. Boom, boom. Okay, now let's get this. Boom. 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 Well, it looks like that filled in pretty nicely. And here, I guess we'll use this shadow-ish color. I actually feel like those could be slightly darker. Yeah. Okay, and then here, we've got to deal with skin tone. Boom, boom. We will be getting to shadows, by the way, for those who are keeping score. Boom, 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 boom. But yeah, I'm actually feeling like this is going to be a pretty nice looking scene. Once we get the shadows in, that's really going to help too. By the way. Okay, now we got to get our little gold. Well, back in ancient Babylon, this isn't Babylon, but in the ancient world, they called that thing a wingdinger. Okay, let's back up and let's see what we have. Okay, so what we're going to do on the background is quite simple. We're just going to scale it. So the background, the important thing, if you're going to try this, friends, if you're going to try this at home, the important thing is to make sure that every single one of your layers in the background has a keyframe. Because what that means is that when you jump to here and then try to apply a scale to the entire group, what will happen is Credo will set a keyframe in each of those subframes. Like so. Okay? So now we're going to do this, and then we're going to make a slight adjustment so that we still have the moon sneaking in there. Then what we're going to do is we're actually going to go to our Gaussian blur filter, and I'm going to actually crank this up to about, well, it looks like close to 12. And I'm going to just go through these layers one by one, and I'm going to blur them all. I'm going to go ahead and just put a focal blur, bake it into the shot. Okay? That's just my choice. Whatever. There's no right answer, but that's what feels good. Using Clip Studio Paint. Okay, good. Excellent. Okay, I'm glad to hear it. Goswami. Lord knows I picked on you quite a bit back in the day. But always for all the right reasons. Let me double check that contrast there. Okay, so that's interesting. I actually like that a little better. But I feel like it is a little extreme on the high end. So let's go Control M, and let's just turn it down, shall we? Yeah, that feels better. Okay, so all right, let's jump right to shadows because I just kind of want to get them in there because they really do add a lot. And so let's alpha lock that and hit the G key, and we're just going to use the old quintessential shapes like so. It's, again, it's alpha locked. Probably a little more contrast than usual since it's supposed to be nighttime. And in Vespar's case, honestly, actually, boy, we're going to want to definitely put in the, let's hit the N key so we're seeing this at actual size, because this really needs to be one of these deals. Totally, totally. That's exactly what it needs to be. Simple and bold. That looks so much better. Okay, so the only thing I'm going to tweak on that is there. And then, honestly, because of the nature of what we're doing here, I'm actually thinking we're going to put in, yeah, absolutely. I like that. And then let's let the eye of the viewer be drawn a little bit to this thing, too. We'll put a nice... I may actually go in and animate a specifically even brighter edge on that. But I love how much production value we get out of well, shadows and edges. Okay, so now I'm seeing some strange stuff. Okay, why are we actually seeing the onion skins? I think we are. Yep, look at that. I'm seeing this ghosting, and it's actually the onion skins that were causing it. That's nuts, guys. That's nuts how that works. Isn't that nice looking? That looks nice. Okay, so control insert, so we have a keyframe, and then here, this is just going to require some slight adjustment, I would say. So, E. Nah, actually strike that. I'm going to hit the insert key and just do it again. Okay, so G key. What I want to do is, you know, be cognizant of what I did on the last frame. Okay, so this is basically going to cover all of this area like that. Yep, let's keep going and just get that in there. Boom. I want to actually catch a bit of shadow there. That'll make the highlight stand out more. Okay, and then here, let's go ahead and give a little bit more. Oh, bad idea. Thought it was a good idea, but it was a bad idea. Putting a little bit of an edge is okay. Okay, and then jump to here, insert, and maybe here we can get away with what I was talking about a moment ago. That looks pretty good. That does look pretty good. Boom. Get all those guys in shadow and a little bit on the diadem, or the pendant, I guess you'd say. Okay, now we add white, and let's just go through and make it gorgeous. So easy, so cheap, so quick. Some of the stuff you can do to add production value is pretty dramatically easy. Okay, and even actually perhaps a bit of a sneak right there, catching on the sleeves, I would say. Back of frame. Now what we got to do is let's go back here and kind of reference that so we're not deviating from what we did initially too much. You know, obviously the light's going to catch it a little different as he moves around, but we don't want to add a bunch of junk that wasn't there in the first frame, unless we come up with something better and decide to change the first frame, obviously. Okay, and I think, by the way, I think I'm going to get this coloring done and then probably call it a session. What time is it? 11:36? Yeah, I've been going an hour and a half. It's not a mega long session, but Okay, so I did want to do, I'm going to call this spec for specular. This is actually going to be a harsh white, and we're going to grab a regular um, pencil brush, and we do not want the G key, by the way. We want the B key, so I'm going to undo that, hit B. Okay, this is what I'm trying to do. And I of course, reserve the right to decide to tone it down. But for now, I'm thinking that this thing is important, right? So we want to allow it to grab some attention. Okay? So there's that. And let's see what we have, friends. Okay. So now the only problem is the animation actually on Vespar's face, I'm not quite buying it. So here's what we need to do. Let's go in and let's call this face color. The only reason I'm putting it on another layer is because I'm not confident that I'm not going to foul it up. So the easiest way to deal with it is to make it extreme and then turn it down. Okay, so for that reason, I'm just trying to hint that his eyes are squinting a bit too. Here. Yeah, that works. Okay, so then we can basically turn it down. And golly, you know, we don't really actually need to turn down that far. I think I want to let his eyes stand out just a little bit, and then I'm going to consider, it's a little risky behavior, but I'm going to consider, I'm just going to call this overlay. So I'm putting it in the same group, but what I'm doing is I'm going to look at using my airbrush to deliberately create an unnatural emphasis of his face. I know it's ridiculous. But now let me put this in overlay mode. Okay, so it's kind of virtual light. So look what we can do. We can just, this is purely aesthetic. This has nothing to do with what looks realistic. This has everything to do with what makes the frame pop better. You know, that's it. And being able to see his face just a little better, I think, is a good thing. So now in this case, I would say here, that's too extreme. Probably about, what is that, 27%. I would say that is acceptable. Okay, colors blend, blending well, nice choices, thank you. Yeah, I mean, that's the reason, that's why I actually colored the character in gray. I colored him in gray first so that I could put in the background and then do the coloring on Vespar's costume with the background in mind. And I do feel like it's gone pretty well. Now, I would say, actually, let's go to the face color layer. I'm actually going to go ahead and put the eyes in there too. Whoops, that's the wrong brush. Come on. I am going to go ahead and put the whites of the eyes in here. There's no reason not to. And if it makes him pop just a little bit better, then there it is. Why is that? Well, wait. Why is this showing up over? That's why. Okay, my bad. Let's undo a couple times. the eyes are baked into the Vespar layer up until he stops moving. I hope that makes sense. So I was, and by the way, I just fouled it up again. We want to be in the face color layer. So my point is that right now we are actually painting over the ink, not under the ink. So I have to just be a little careful about that. Save our work. All right, now if we hit Control R, I believe everything's already set up to render. And we'll jump over to the show. Let's see how it flows into the show, shall we? Boom, transition over to here. And look at that. Oh my gosh. Guys, this is, you know, not to get excited here or anything, but you know what? This is looking pretty freaking good. Now, I will say there's some color balance issues. Here, those hey Darren, these need to be blued out for, we might as well correct it now. Let's go here and then just add a color corrector, and then whatever we do, we're gonna probably just move the lows towards the blue is probably gonna be all that's required. We just want to balance it with this. Okay, it's not quite where it needs to be. That's a little better. That feels better. And then obviously here, we'll call this bluing. We'll call it bluing and save that, because then that allows us to take this one, add a color corrector, boom, and just pull up the preset that we just created right there. And so now we know that it's going to be the same correction. All right, and then let's see if it worked. So we're actually a little too green there, so I was wrong. I need to pull these guys both back a bit. And morning, Val. Val just got up, and we will, so I'm going to make this correction, and then I'm done. And then that's going to be it for this session. Zuko's calling out to Val. Apparently he's happy to see her. Look at that. I tell you guys, this is a good start to episode 3, because this is what I was hoping for. I was hoping, if I'm careful, we'll get into it, and you know, the production values will be there, and it'll just feel good, and that feels good to me. I'm liking what I'm seeing. So anyway, okay, so that's it. Sorry to cut out here now that you showed up, Darren, but obviously you can look back at the live stream if you want to. But you know, expect this to continue. I'm gonna be, you know, I'm into episode 3, and I'm having fun. It's a good time, and so with that, I'm gonna say, guys, I'm gonna sign off, and you know.